Hey guys, it's Hunter here from the Wellness Center. I'm a wellness instructor here to teach you guys another Taco Tuesday recipe, so here we go. I'm going to start by talking about the spices I'm going to use. I'm not going to use any pre-mixed or store-bought recipes for spice mixes. I'm putting together my own today. Usually you can put these together based on stuff you already have in your pantry. For today, we're going to be using about a pound of ground beef, so the general rule of thumb is going to be me using about a teaspoon per pound. So first off, we got roasted garlic, onion powder, cayenne, chili powder, cumin, and crushed red pepper. All the spice is going to come from your crushed red pepper, so if you don't like spicy food, that's the part to control. I'm going to go ahead and start by adding a teaspoon of each. Not only will the flavor of these be better than your general store-bought spice mixes, but you can also control the salt content in your meat as well, because these store-bought ones are really salt-filled, and if you end up oversalting, you have no way of controlling it because it's just one spice packet. There's nothing you can do about it. So the other way to control that is by doing it yourself. And I'm starting with a teaspoon of salt, just like teaspoon per pound, that same rule of thumb. Just finishing off with cumin here. I'm going to go ahead and add a little teaspoon of salt to this. It seems like a lot, but people really underestimate how much salt stuff actually needs when they're cooking. Alright, it's our spice mix that we got available. Today we're doing ground beef tacos with a bunch of, normal fixings that you would assume, like tomatoes and lettuce, sour cream, cheese. I have some avocado that I'm going to add to mine today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Start with the ground beef. Turn your pan. This one's a pretty deep dish since we have about a pound of beef here. We're going to start by heating this up pretty hot. Start cooking the beef. What you want to do with the beef is you're going to throw it basically all in and brown it on some oil and get all the fat out. That'll be step one. And then right after that, you're going to pour all the fat out and then add your spice mix and water to the mix, and then you simmer it off from there. And then after that, you have plenty of time to get your fixings together when your meat is starting to simmer. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and add oil now. This is pretty lean ground beef compared to like 80-20, of course. It doesn't seem like that much of a difference, but a lot of fat is gonna come off this one compared to something like lean, but this is obviously gonna be cheaper. Fat is flavor, but there's a lot you can get out of this when you're draining it. All right, so we're gonna get that ready. As you can see, I've already got lettuce and tomatoes already that I'm gonna mix up, and then cheese over there. It's ground beef, so don't be super worried about breaking it up into tiny bite-sized pieces right now. You just want this to be spread out pretty well, so it's gonna cook a little bit faster. And then once you're satisfied with that, just let it sit. What you're looking for here is a lot of browning on the bottom of the beef, so it's going to create a fond on the bottom that you'll be able to pick up later with your water that you're going to put in. This dish is very easy, especially when you're making this for a whole bunch of people, so this is why I recommend it. When you start to put together your own spice mixes like the one I have here, you really don't need any sort of store-bought situation anymore. It may seem like it's easier, but when you already own all these spices, just pulling them out with a teaspoon each isn't that hard. And you can also adjust it by just adding a teaspoon each of each spice after you add like a pound of beef, so pretty expandable with that. I'm starting to get browning already, but it looks like my pan is uneven. You're already seeing all that fat come off of it. Don't be super freaked out, we're gonna pour it off anyway. It's also gonna shrink down a lot, so Don't overestimate how big of a pan you need. I'm just using this one because it's a flat bottom, very easy to use. Doing this in pot would be go pretty well too. So now we're just looking to get rid of all the pink color out, and once it turns all brown, I'm going to pour this off. Take my pan and go ahead and dump all that beef in. You don't have to get all the oil. Don't worry about being a perfectionist here. I mean, it is gonna add some flavor, but we just wanna drain the majority off of it. Pan's gonna start heating up. We're gonna take the rest of our beef that we had. But I'm back. As you can see, I've just covered the beef with the water. And now I'm gonna bring it to a boil to fully cook it. At this point, I can add the rest of my spices in and mix them pretty well. Like I said before, you don't have to worry about the spices mixing very well because the water just coating everything is going to do most of that work for us. But if you are worried about it, shake it up. And that's all you need to do. We're bringing this to a simmer, and then it'll be around 15 to 25 minutes on a pretty high heat to get this water to come off. You'll know it's done as soon as the water is basically completely evaporated. We can move on to our fixings for the tacos. Brand new lettuce head here. You know we all love shreddis, so I'm gonna start with that. I'm just taking the end off of this. I'm left-handed, so this is gonna be a little bit weird, but just taking this end cap off, and then from there we can go really thin cuts. Just barely cutting, getting a little bit as possible. So we've got all that we needed. Any of this extra stuff, you can just go along it, sort of chop that into small bits. You don't want gigantic pieces, but you don't want to absolutely pulverize this. So, I mean, something like that for the serving we're making is going to be absolutely fine. Next, we're going to go on with our tomatoes. I'm just using cherry tomatoes because they're so much easier to store and you don't have to use all of it like a normal big tomato. So my method is just cutting it straight down the middle, turning it on the side, and gently cutting down. You don't want to put much pressure on this. You want to let the knife do the work because you're going to lose all your juices on the cutting board, like you might see me do pretty soon. But if your knife is really sharp, you don't have to worry about that, and you can get these perfect cuts. And our last fixings are our cheddar cheese. Get a nice shredder right here. Just go ahead and use a block. It's gonna be cheaper anyway, and the cheese is gonna taste way better. You're not gonna need much, obviously, so I don't have to go crazy here. But I've got all the cheese I'll ever need for a couple days now. Back. My beef is completely done. And you turn off the heat. A little bit hot to serve. We're not too worried about it. Ooh. Go ahead and spread it around like that. I just spin it a few times. You build some heat resistance every time by just cooking. Our meat is completely done. I'm gonna take this time to taste for salt. Like I was mentioning earlier about how you can't control the salt in those pre-made packets, you can in this. So if you need to add more salt now, you can, but it gives you control. Awesome. This one should be about done. Nope. Just like that, we filled it down. Second one will go a lot faster. I'm just looking for a little bit of browning. It's not exactly what I want, but we'll get it in a second. If you gotta redo it. And turn the heat down. Really just want a little bit of color on the bottom. Just finishing these off. Again, this is about the color I'm looking for. And go ahead and press this one into our dish here. It's gonna give me a little bit of problems like I was just talking about, but it'll work out fine. Go ahead and bend these into shape. These little taco holders are great. I'm just starting to use them for the first time as of recently. And then we'll start our assembly. I always start with sour cream. It's just my personal choice. But if you spread it across the bottom, you get a little bit of it in every bite. These are gonna be really colorful, which is why I like to have them a lot. But you can pick all 3 of these up at the same time, really useful. We got our beef here, and then I'm gonna start with a little bit of our cheese. Coat each of those. All right. Start with our crunchy lettuce. Gives an excellent bite to the taco. Really useful. Nice. Next are tomatoes. Spread these pretty evenly. You don't want these falling out, but it's awesome to have a little bit of sweetness in there with the spiciness from the beef. Sauce. Texas Pete that we just constantly refill in the house. Add my avocado that I talked about in the beginning. I'm just cutting across these, cut little cubes that I can bring out. And there we go. Got some jalapenos right here. People that do want something spicy other than hot sauce, these are just a great addition to anything. And there we go. Easy taco meal with a general idea of how to do taco beef. Thanks for sticking with me. Have a good one. Bye.